Hello everyone. So today I'm going to discuss about the benign prostatic hyperplasia, so also called as enlargement of the prostate. So this is a very important topic in this surgery subject. So in this topic, I'm going to discuss about the introduction of the enlargement of the prostate. So what is the benign prostatic hyperplasia definitions? So how much of the percentage? So who's going to give me a chance to get the this benign prostatic hyperplasia may chance to get, and what are the causative factors, clinical features, that is a clinical manifestations. So how we are going to diagnose this, that is through the investigation procedures, medical management through the medical, like in the catheterization and also drug management, as well as if it is not controllable, so how we are going to manage through the surgical management, and also are going to be complications, and we are going to discuss about the prevention. So these are the objective learning objectives of this benign prostatic hyperplasia, also called as the enlargement of the prostate. So if you see this is the prostate is located at the, so below near to the is a bladder, urinary bladder. So it's inferior to the urinary bladder. So this is going to be surrounding to the ureter. So if you see here, this is the normal ureter. So if any urine formation in the bladder, so the urine will come outside through the blood is a urethra. So this is the ureter. So this ureter, so if any abnormality in the prostate, so what happens? So because of the enlargement, this becomes swollen, so it's getting the swelling, and also it's going to compress this ureter, so it's going to give the obstruction to the ureter. It may lead to the obstruction of the urinary flow. So because of these things, so it may give the complication in the urinary bladder, as well as this is going to give the complication in the reproductive system. So if you see the introduction of this benign prostatic hyperplasia is also called as benign enlargement of the prostate gland. So that means the size is going to be increased. And also in many patients older than the 50 years, the prostate gland enlarges, extending upwards into the bladder, and also obstructing the flow of the urine by encroaching on the vesicles orifice. So it's going to be obstructing this ureter. So that is the major problems. So normally in the normal physiological functions, so day-to-day life, this prostate is going to be like increasing the size day by day, depends upon the hormonal balance. So if it is the normal persons, that means who are participating regular active healthy lifestyle, and also if who are doing the healthy diet, and also if there is no diabetes and hypertensions, who are from the disease free, so those people are may won't get this is a prostate enlargement. So who are having the health complications along with is that sedentary lifestyle, so may chance to get the prostate enlargement. So because of this enlargement of the prostate, most commonly seen in the above the 50 years of age group. So in the above the 50 years of age group, so and also 60 and 70, most of the in the age group of 80, so almost 75% of may chance to get this prostate enlargement disease. And also this condition is known as benign prostatic hyperplasia, also called as BPH, and also enlargement and also hypertrophy and of the prostate. So it's going to be the size is going to be increase the prostate gland. So this is the most common urologic problems in the male adults. So it's going to be the urological problems. The most common complication is the obstruction of the urine flow. So because of the obstruction of the urine flow, it may give the complication in the bladder as well as the ureters and also urethra. So these are the complications they are going to get. About 50% of the all men in their lifetime will develop the benign prostatic hyperplasia. So almost 50% people may chance to get at any particular age. So almost in the age group of 70, 80, so most of the old people are may chance to get the benign prostatic hyperplasia. So of these men, almost half of them will have the bothersome lower urinary tract infections or symptoms. So especially they are going to get the because of the obstructions. So they may not get the pass the urine. They are unable to void the urine, and also may chance to get the difficult because of the difficulty of the voiding the urine. So if they put more pressure, may chance to get the damage to the ureter. They will get the bleeding in the urine, so which is called as hematuria. So these type of complications may chance to get in the urinary tract, and also it may leads to the urinary tract infections. So until now, the research is not clear about the whether having the benign prostatic hyperplasia leads to an increasing risk of the developing prostate cancer. So until now, there is no exact causative factors not find to get the prostate cancer. So is because of the hyperplasia or because of the any urinary tract infections. Until now, it's not cleared about the prostatic cancer development. So until now we discuss about the, so what is the benign uh, prostatic hyperplasia. So actually, what is prostate actually? So prostate is nothing but is a gland, so which is a part of the male reproductive system. So it is about the size of the walnut size and weight about 1 ounce. So around the 30 grams of the size. So is the location is going to be the inferior to the, so that means below the bladder, in front of the rectum. So it's going to be below the bladder and also in front of the rectum. So it goes all the way around the tube called the urethra, which carries the urine from the bladder out through the penis. So that means the connection between the bladder and also to the penis, the ureter is there. So ureter is going to collect the urine from the bladder towards the like a urethra. So from the penis is going to the urine is going to be void through the urethra. So if any obstruction in the prostate, if any swelling in the prostate, so what happened is going to obstructing the is a ureter, so it may use the difficulties in the voiding the urine. So that is the main function of the prostate. That is a main location. That's a location in the below the bladder as well as the in front of the rectum. So it may give the complication to the bladder as well as to the, it may give the complication to the rectum as well as. So what is the main function of the prostate? So the main function of the prostate is, so the main job, you make the fluid for semen. So the semen is going to be formations. So need the fluid formations. So this fluid is going to be formed by the prostate gland. So during the ejaculation, the sperm made in the testicles move to the urethra. So that sperm is going to be made in the testicles. So from the testicles, it gives to the is a urethra. At the same time, fluid from the prostate and also seminal vesicles also move into the urethra. So the semen that is going to be the fluid needs for the semen formations. The fluid is coming from the prostate gland, and also the sperm is going to be coming from the testicles. So this both are the fluid as well as the sperm is going to be comes to the urethra. So at the same time, fluid from the prostate and seminal vesicles also move into the urethra. So this mixture is going to be the semen. So goes through the urethra and out through the penis. So during the sexual participations, so the semen is going to be come outside through the penis. So this semen is because of the formation of the sperm from the testicles and also fluid from the prostate. So if any abnormality in these formations in the testicles, and also if that is in the sperm formation in the testicles and also any fluid formation in the prostate, it may use the alterations or abnormality in the semen coming through the penis. So this is about the function of the prostate. So it's going to be altered because of the obstruction or because of the swelling of the prostate gland. So this is the benign prostatic hyperplasia is a non-cancerous. So this is going to be non-cancerous. So if anybody get the enlargement, so it may use the complications. So that means it's due to because of the cancer. So it won't be cancer, but if it is not controllable the symptoms, it may progress into the cancers. So this is the non-cancerous enlargement. So increasing the size of the prostate gland. So there the prostate gland is going to be increased. So which involves in the hyperplasia of the prostatic stromal and also epithelial cells. So the cell structure and also the cell is also growth is going to be increased, and also the cell multiplication is going to be increased. So it leads to the hyperplasia. The cell number is going to be increased. So if the cell number is increased, so automatically the size of the epithelial cells and also stromal cells are going to be increased. So this is going to be because of the increasing the number of the cells, so resulting in the formation of the large, fairly discrete the nodules in the transitional zone of the prostate. So because of this size increasing, so size also is size due to increase because of the number of the cells are going to be increased. So it gives the hyperplasia is now also called as hyperplasia. So especially the stromal cells and also epithelial cells number is going to be increased. So because of the increasing these cells, the size is going to increase. Nodule it will form the nodules in the transitional zone of the prostate. In the prostate, the nodule is going to be. So if you see here, in the early stages of so this is the bladder, so this is the ureters. So here is going to be because of the enlargement, so is going to get is uh, is going to be compressed. This is the normal ones in the early, so there is no compression to the ureters. But in the intermediate, so because of the swelling of these prostate gland is going to give the pressure here. So this is the prostate gland. So it's going to compress the ureters. So if it's compressed the ureter, automatically the flow of the urine is going to be decreased. So in the severe conditions, so it's going to completely narrowing the urethra and also ureters. So because of this completing narrowing of the ureters, may give the complications in the bladder as well as the urethra. So if they are not passing the urine, are not voiding the urine, so the urine is stagnated in the bladder, so they may chance to get the severe pain and also will get the infections and may chance to get the hematuria. If they try to void, so it will put the more pressure, so it may chance to get the rupture of the walls of the bladder. It may give the hematuria, that is the blood in the urine. So these are the changes and physiological changes in the enlargement of the prostate. So is going to be which pushes on the narrow of the urethra. So because of the swelling, is going to push the urethra narrowing and also resulting in the increasing the resistance to the flow of the urine from the bladder. So if the ureter is compressed, so if this is going, the urethra is compressed. So what happened is the person has to put more pressure to avoid the urine. So because of this pressure, so may chance to get the rupture of the musculature in the bladder. So it may give the bleeding inside the urine. So these are the physiological change, pathological changes in case of the enlargement of the prostate gland. So who are going to get the more prone to get the prostate enlargement? So 50% of the men having the incidence of the benign prostatic hyperplasia by the age group of the 50 years. Above the 50 years, so they may chance to get the 50% of the people may chance to get the prostate gland enlargement. If they reach to the 80 years, so almost 75% of the population or age group are going to be get this benign prostatic hyperplasia. So that is most commonly seen in the old age. So that's the reasons. So in the old age, they are going to get the urinary complications and also urine such as the urinary tract infections and also may chance to get the prostate cancer because of the enlargement of the prostate gland. So the cost factors. So cost factors and also what are the risk factors? The cost factors are the main cost factors are the dihydrotestosterone hormones. So this dihydrotestosterone is present in the body from day to day, depends upon the amount of testosterone present. So all the men's having both the hormones such as the testosterone and also estrogen. So this testosterone is the male sexual hormone and also estrogen is the female sexual hormones. But both hormones are going to be, they have everybody having both hormones, but depends upon the sex. That means male or females. So in the females, estrogen hormone is going to be increase the amount. The level is going to percentage is going to be high than the men. So men also having the high percentage of testosterone and low percentage of the estrogen. So in this one, when the testosterone is increased more, so it is converted into the dihydrotestosterone. So who are having the high testosterone, all hormones always should be balanced. Either testosterone or also estrogen should be balanced. So if any hormonal imbalance, if the testosterone levels are high, so this testosterone is converted into the dihydrotestosterone. So this dihydrotestosterone also is so this is going to be increasing the level. So it may causing the chance to get the enlargement of the prostate gland. So in case of, for example, hormonal imbalance, if for same like in the females also, if they're having the estrogen levels increasing also, they are going to get the balance in hormonal imbalance, may chance to get the complications. So same like in the male, if the estrogen levels are increased, so he's going to get the sexual characteristics are going to be changed. So it will be depends upon everything will depends upon the hormonal imbalance. So this the testosterone levels are increased means, so automatically is going to convert into the dihydrotestosterone. So it is the one of the cost factor and risk factor for the enlargement of the prostate gland. So what are the risk factors? Who may chance to get the more prone to get the prostate enlargement? So these are going to be is aging is so aging, especially if they cross the above 40 years or in the 50 years. So this is going to be increase the 50% of the people. And also if it reached the 80 years of age group, it is be almost 75% of the percentage of the people may chance to get the prostate enlargement. And also another risk factor is the family history. So having any blood relatives such as father or brother with a prostate problems means more likely have the problems. So if the, any history of the family, any brothers or father or anybody previously parents, if they're having any complication related to prostate, may chance to get the family members. And also is a ethnic background. So this is going to be more less common, is a less common in the Asian men than the white and black men. So in the according to some research surveys and studies, it shows that is Asians are less than the white and also black men. And also who are having the diabetes and also heart diseases, so may chance to get the benign prostatic hyperplasia. And also especially is the lifestyle or who are having the high BMI or is the body mass index or such as the obesity. Is obesity is the one of the risk factor for the all the non-communicable disorders. So this also is going to be one of the causative factor for the benign prostatic hyperplasia. So if they do regular exercise, so who are practicing regular exercise are going to prevent the benign prostatic hyperplasia, or is the may chance to reduce the complications with the prostate enlargement. And also who are having the erectile dysfunctions also may chance to get the prostate enlargement. Erectile dysfunction means who are having some complication related to the sexual functions if they're not participating sexually. So because of the any trauma or because of any psychological problems, or maybe because of the any drugs or medications or any health status, or these are the causative factors, or may chance to give the enlargement of the prostate gland. So what are the clinical manifestations? What are the major symptoms of the prostate gland enlargement? So is the first one is the hesitancy in the starting urinations. So because of the obstruction of the urethra, so unable to, or is a hesitancy, or is starting the urination. The initiation of the urination is going to be difficult because of obstruction of the or compression of the urethra because of the enlargement of the prostate gland. Increasing the frequency of the urinations. So because of the this obstruction, so it's going to push the bladders and also stimulate the bladder muscles. So it may use the frequency. So if the little bit of extra amount of urine formations, so they have to go to the toilet. That is called as the frequency. Have to go immediately. So otherwise they may chance to get the incontinence. So it may chance to drip in their pants or in their dress. And also is may chance to get the nocturnia. So it's difficult to especially in the night time they're going to be past the urine in the dress itself. And also urgency and unable to control the urine. And also abdominal straining. So it may chance to get the because of the urinary retention, the urine cannot pass easily, and also the bladder is going to be enlarged. So because of the enlargement of the bladder, it may chance to get the distension in the abdomen. So it may abdominal the straining. And also decrease in the volume and also force of the urinary stream. So volume also going to be decreased. So because of this because of the obstruction of the urethra, so the person unable to take the water content properly, they will take the water content also. So because of they may chance to get the water is enough to the body functions, so they won't get much urine formations. So because of the urinary tract infection also, so may chance to get the volume also going to be decreased, force also going to be decreased because of they have to put more pressure because of the obstruction, the force is going to be decreased. So that is the reasons. So we have to do the urodynamic test in the investigation procedures. We have to know the force and also volume. We have to check. Depends upon the force and volume. We are going to measure the how much of the severity is there in the enlargement of the prostate gland. And also next one is the interruption of the urinary stream. So it means between it may use the interruptions while avoiding the urine. Dripping also. So because of the obstruction, it may give the drips. So they feel the sensation is the incomplete sensation of the bladder. So always if they go to the voiding, so because of the obstruction, so they have to put more pressure. If they put the more pressure, may chance to get the rupture of the muscles. It may leads to the hematuria or blood in the urine. So sometimes he unable to pass the urine completely. So the patient always complain about the incomplete emptying. And also acute urinary retentions. So is going to be because of the obstruction, the urine is going to get the retention is going to be stagnated in the bladder. So it's more than is the 60 ml. So after completing the urination also, so some amount is going to be remaining. So that is the may chance to get the retentions. And recurrent UTIs, recurrent urinary tract infections, and fatigue, anorexia. So this recurrent urinary tract infection because of the urine stagnation in the bladder. So if there is no proper flow, so the urine is going to be stagnated in the bladder. So if they stagnated the waste material in the bladder, so may chance to get the infection formations, or is going to be infection is going to be developed in the bladder. Fatigue and also tiredness easily, and anorexia because of the abdominal distension, the person unable to take the food. So it may leads to the loss of the weight, and also nausea and also vomiting. So because of the abdominal like a distension, so may chance to get the nausea and vomiting. The discomfort, pelvic discomfort, and also they may chance to get the pain because of the this inflammation or maybe infections, or because of the abdominal distensions. So and also may chance to get the pain in the abdominal regions and also pelvic regions. And also ultimately is azotemia and also renal failure and the blood in the urine. So these are the major symptoms and also so clinical manifestation of the benign prostatic hyperplasia are nothing but is enlargement of the enlargement of the prostate gland. So how we can say is how much of the severity of the enlargement, so the prostate enlargement. So this is depends upon the stages of the enlargement. So these are the prostate enlargement will be the 4 stages. So in the stage 1, so is going to be the obstruction is going to be absent, and also the symptoms also going to be absent. Only the treatment is the watch and counsel. So if anybody like get the some in case of if they go for the any other test, so sometimes in the ultrasound scan or maybe other investigation procedures, so doctors may find the prostate enlargement. So in those conditions, the patient may not having the symptoms. That means no obstruction and also no symptoms. So for them, only thing is we have to wait until further any symptoms appears. So for them, we have to watch and also counsel. So if the doctors identify any prostate enlargement, how to give the proper counseling regarding the prostate enlargement. So until the symptoms have to wait. If no symptoms, so they can maintain the healthy lifestyle. So if they're having a symptoms, so according to symptoms, how to give the treatment. So, and also next about the stage 2, so the obstruction is going to be absent, but symptoms are going to be present. Symptoms means maybe frequency or urgency or dripping, or they are feeling the incomplete voiding, incomplete passing the urine. So they complain about the symptoms. So if any like a hematuria, so all these things depends upon the person. So if they give the symptoms, so but no obstructions, so we can start the medical management. So medical management, so depends upon the causative factors, we have to give the medical management. In the stage three, the obstruction is going to be present. So the urethra going to be is obstructed. So it's going to the prostate is going to compress the urethra. So because of this compression, so it may use the obstructions. So, and also the symptoms are going to be irrespective, and also all the symptoms may chance to get pelvic pain, and also the obstruction, and also hematuria or infections. Oh, all these symptoms may chance to get. So who are having the obstruction as well as the symptoms are irrespective. So the treatment procedure is the surgical options. So if they are not getting the obstructions, so we cannot cure with the medications. So in those conditions, only treatment option is the surgical options. So stage 4, so is going to get the obstruction as well as the complications with the benign prostatic hyperplasia, and symptoms also going to get the complications. For them, only the treatment plan is the surgical procedures. So immediately have to the surgical procedures. Otherwise, they are going to get the severe complications. So that is about the stages of the prostate gland enlargement. So before going to the investigation procedures, so we have to take the like a proper history from the patients regarding the like a urinary flow and also volume, pressure, force, the symptoms. So that things have to do we have to do the physical examinations. So physical examinations, we have to do the palpation and observation, palpations and auscultations. So these things we have to do some special tests in the abdomen. So we have to find out any like a any nodule or anything, any extra enlargements. or if any tumors, so we have to identify through the physical examinations. So after collecting the history regarding their symptoms, so we have to do the physical examination properly. So these physical examinations are going to reveal and also going to give the clues about the any obstruction are related to the any like a prostate cancers, or maybe we can found out the we have to rule out the what are the other complications may chance to get in the bowel and bladder and also genitourinary system. So these physical examinations, we are going to do the different special tests. We have to check as well as and also have to do the distal rectal examination. So this distal rectal examination we already discussed in the last classes. So this one is, so we have to do the with the finger examinations with the glove. So how to put the insert the fingers into the rectum. So if any enlargement of the prostate, so we can identify through the rectal examinations. So, and also we have to do the physical examinations, including the distal rectal examinations, and how to do the urine analysis for the, especially for the hematuria, if any blood in the urine, or maybe is there any infection in the urinary tract. So that is a urinary tract infections. So these have to do for the, to diagnose completely about the prostate enlargement. So these special tests, so after examinations, so if the patient complain anything related to the obstruction of the urine flow or pain in the pelvic regions or any blood in the urine or any infections or maybe because of the any dripping of the urine or incompleting sensation of the urine. So if they complain these symptoms, so we have to do the some special investigation procedures. So these are going to be special investigation procedures are going to be the prostate specific antigen levels. So this one we have to do the examination, the blood examinations. So it will reveal the prostate antigen, especially the specific antigen PSA levels. So these are going to be detect the rate of the prostate cancers. So with this, the prostate specific antigen, so this special test is going to be helpful to detect the prostate cancer. So this one is who are having the more than 50 years of age group have a 20 to 30% possibility having the prostate cancers. So this prostate specific antigen is going to reveal about the prostate cancers. So especially is the above the 50 years may chance to get the 20 to 30% of the possibilities may chance to get the prostate cancers. So if their PSA levels, prostate specific antigen levels are higher than the is a 4.3 is a ng and nanograms for the milliliters. So it indicating that is the risk factor for the prostate hyper enlargement, or if it is more reach more than the is if it is reached to the 4 to 10 milligrams, that is the in the nanograms for the milliliters. If it is indicating is may chance to get the cancers. So this is the normal levels. So if the levels is between the 2.5 to 4 nanograms per milliliters is likely to detect the cancer in the 27%. So according to some researchers, sometimes if the prostate specific antigen, so that is the normal level is going to be is the less than like a 4 nanograms per milliliters. So if anybody having more than 4 to 10 like a nanograms, so it indicates in the may suspect the cancerous prostate cancers. But even though if they're having a less like a this PSA levels are less than 2.5 and also 4 nanograms per milliliters. So how to do the other special investigation procedures to detect the cancer? The special investigation procedures such as biopsy. So we have to take some small piece of the from the prostate. So have to check for any cancer in the prostate gland. So these are going to be some investigation procedures I have to do for identify the prostate enlargement as well as the prostate cancers. So these are going to be, so sometimes some other activities may interpret this prostate, that is a specific antigen levels. So if anybody do any vigorous exercise, or if any who are having already urinary tract infections, and also who already participate in the sexual participation before the 48 hours, so and also any anal sex or in the sexual participations, and also in case of the any enlargement of the prostates. So these are may chance to give the prostate specific antigens are going to be levels are going to be increased. So that is the reasons. So these PSA levels are contraindicated. So who already done any vigorous exercise, so in the last 48 hours. So if they want to go to the PSA special test, this is test. So the person should not do the any exercise. So before the 48 hours. So if they take any rest, so after the 48 hours, if they go to the test, so we can find the PSA levels. So that is the main important things. And also the prostate stimulations, who already have any prostate stimulations, such as if they participate in the sex before the 48 hours, such as the anal sex and also direct participations. So during the participation, they are going to ejaculate the semen. So this indicating the PSA levels are going to be increased. So that is the reasons. So before going to this test, they should not participate in the sex. So either is so should not participate in the sex. So it may use the raise in the PSA levels. And also active urinary infections. So in case of the active urinary infections, so should not do the special test. So it may use the abnormal results. So it may chance to get the PSA levels are increased. Or in case of any biopsy, so in case of the history of the had a prostate biopsy in the previous 6 weeks, so if in case of 1.5 months, so if they have history of the biopsy of the prostate, so it may chance to get the increasing the high PSA levels. In those conditions, we should not refer to the PSA test. So that is about the PSA test to rule out or to detect the prostate cancer and also enlargement. So next one is the urinary flow rate. So these are going to be, we have to record the flow rate, and also this going to be measurement to especially the post-void residual value. Post-void residual value means, so after voiding the urine, so we can measure the how much of the urine is stayed inside the bladder. So normally, who are the normal persons, so if they, after completing the passing the urine, the voiding the urine, so there is no amount of the urine so in the bladder. But in case of prostate enlargement, because of the compression of the urethra, so cannot complete pass the urine. So some is may chance to get the some amount of the urine may stay inside the bladder. So that is the reasons the person is going to feel the is a not complete empty the bladder. So still some amount of the urine is going to be stayed in the bladder. So in this one is, if it is more than is the 50 ml, so it indicating so they having the post residual voiding, that's the post void residual volume is going to be increased. If it is more than 100 ml, so it indicating the prostate gland enlargement or maybe is obstruction of the urethra. So that's the reasons. So we have to check how much of the volume is there in the urine inside the bladder. So it will give the clues to identify the prostate enlargement or any obstruction in the urethra. So another special test we have to do the urodynamic studies. So these urodynamic studies are going to be explained about the nerve and also muscle functions. So these nerve and muscle functions is going to be explained about the pressure around the bladder. So in this special test in the urodynamics, so these two catheters are going to be inserted into one is going to the bladder and also another is going to the rectum. So this is going to be, these catheters are going to give so it gives the pressure. So it's going to be explained about the pressure inside the bladder and also is going to give the pressure inside the rectum. So these are going to give about the pressure inside the urethra and also the bladder pressures and intrinsic bladder pressures, abdominal pressures, and also flow of the urine. So it's going to give the clear informations about the urine and also bladder as well as in the urethra. So these tests are going to be do under the special investigation procedures under the urologist. So they are going to do the special investigation is to complete the rule out the pressure in the urethra as in the bladder and also in the abdomen. So these are going to be gives the clear information about any obstruction or maybe is the residual flow or any difficulty in there is any pressure inside the bladder. So this is explained about the urodynamic studies. So another special test is going to be the urethrocystoscopy. So this urethrocystoscopy, so here is going to be the special instrument, is nothing but a cystoscopy. So it's going to be the examination of the bladder and also urinary tract. So this, if you see this instrument, so this is the cystoscope, is going to insert it into the urethra. So the tube or the duct that empties the urine from the bladder into out of the body. So it's going to insert it into the urethra. So this instrument is called the cystoscope. So this cystoscope is going to describe about so this is a reveal about any disease or any disorder in the urethra or in the bladder, or is there any any obstruction or any irregularity in this urethra. So it's going to give the clear informations so about the urethra and also bladder. So this is going to be explained about the, it's going to detect about the any lesions or tumors or any external the striated sphincters. So if any abnormality or any abnormal pressures, or is there any is the any extra growth, that means any nodules or any tumors present inside the this the prostate and also urethra, it may clearly explain about the, with this we can diagnose and also we can that means we can identify with the cystoscope. So this special test have to do under the special, like a physician, the urologist has to do this special test. So with the like a proper precautionary measures. So sometimes may chance to get the complications and also have to follow the systemic procedures to avoid the severe serious complications about the cystoscope. Sometimes may chance to get the damage if they're having any like obstruction in the urethra. So may chance to get the bleeding. And also next one is going to be the ultrasound scan. So this ultrasound scan is going to be gives the clear information about the size and locations and shape of the prostate glands and surrounding structures, especially the bladder and also is the urethra and ureters. So this is going to be, so this ultrasound, this is nothing but the sound waves are going to use to detect the size and locations and shape of the prostate glands. So if we know the normal size, so if this ultrasound is going to be explained about how much the abnormal size, how much the size increased, so what is the regularity and also irregularity is going to be explained through the in the ultrasound. So it may be used to look the prostate glands for signs of the cancer and also other conditions. So it also reveals the any symptoms related to the cancer or any extra growth is going to be explained in the ultrasound. So along with this ultrasound and cystoscope, and also how to do the some investigation procedures through the blood like a studies, so complete blood studies, and also do the any like a leukocytes increasement, and also if any increasing the white blood cells, it indicating the any infection in the urine. So we have to check the complete blood examination also, or we can know the is there any causative factor of the bacterial infections or any viral infections. So we are going to find through the this blood studies. So and also one of the tests that is a PSA test also. So also we are going to do the blood examinations and how to do the some clotting studies. So sometimes if there any blood clot is there or not in the urethra or because of the obstructions. So all these tests are going to be, we are going to find out in the through the blood investigation procedures. And also we are going to check this digital rectal examinations. So through the digital rectal examinations, if you wear the glove with the xylocaine, that is the anesthetic, local anesthetics. So if you put the fingers into the rectum, so we are going to palpate the abnormal prostate, that is going to be the irregular and also hard and also fringe shaped nodules we are going to found in the during the distal rectal examination. If you put our fingers into the like a 6 o'clock positions, so that means in these positions this is going to be 6 o'clock positions. If you put inside, so automatically we are going to feel the nodule, so it will be the firm and also hard appear and also hard sensation we are going to feel. So and also this going to be median sulcus also going to be absent while palpating the rectum, while palpating the prostate through the rectum. So these are the some special investigation procedures to identify the prostate abnormalities. So the size is going to be increased. We can find out in the ultrasound scan and also abnormality in the blood and distal rectal examinations. Any physical examination, if anybody having tenderness or anything in the pubic regions and pelvic regions. So these are some of the clues we are going to identify the enlargement of the prostate. Or in case of if anybody when the PSA levels are increased, so if it's more than is 4 nanograms, so it may indicating the prostate gland enlargement. So that's the reasons. So we have to know before applying before refer to the PSA test. So we have to check for any contraindications are there or not. So which is like any vigorous exercises, any sexual participations, or any other cancer, any biopsy history of the biopsy. So these have to check. Then we can go for the special investigations. So next one is that the treatment plan. So this treatment plan depends upon the causative factors. Or is because of the any infections, or is because of the any obstructions. So we have to find out. So is there any other causative factors may use the obstruction, or because of the any prostate enlargement. So if in case of the any enlargement because of the prostate, so I have to do the immediate medical management, so such as the immediate catheterizations. The patient cannot void the urine. So if any abdominal distension, the person is unable to void the urine, unable to pass the urine, so they may chance to get the severe pain in the abdominal regions and also in the pubic region, pelvic regions. So in those conditions, the urologist may consult if the ordinary catheter is not inserted. So if they're not, sometimes it's not difficult, it's not possible to detect or take out the urine from the bladder because of any severe obstructions. So if sometimes the cystoscope may find any obstruction in the urethra, and also sometimes the catheteris cannot send to the through the urethra and also to the bladder, so unable to take out the urine from the bladder and also urethra. So in those conditions, the special treatment have to do the suprapubic cystotomy. So suprapubic cystotomy, so that means have to put the hole in the bladders, so directly put the catheter into the bladder, so have to remove the urine from the bladder, so into collect into the urine bag. So this type of the procedure is called as suprapubic cystectomy. So that means opening the bladder, so directly is going to under the skin. So put the catheter directly into the bladder. From there we can to collect the urine into the urinary bag. So this procedure also called as is a vesicostomy. So that means we are going to collect the urine from the bladder directly with the catheter. So this is nothing but is the surgical procedures, the connection between the urinary bladder and the skin used to drain the urine from the bladder in individual with the obstruction of the normal urinary flow. So if any obstruction in the urethra and also ureter, so the urethra, so if any urethra obstructions, so this we have to put the directly into the bladder. From there we have to take out the urine directly into the urinary bag. So if the symptoms are less, so in those conditions, so if we identify the enlargement of the prostate, if the symptoms are less, we have to watchful and also have to wait until the disease progressions. So without disease progressions, we no need to give any medical management to control the prostate enlargement. So coming to the pharmacological management, so that means that some medications also is going to give some relief from the enlargement of the prostate gland. So these medications are the alpha blockers. So these medications that relax the bladder neck muscles and also muscle fibers in the prostate, making the urination easier. So what are the muscles are helping to the urinations? So these alpha blockers are also going to be is a relax the alpha these muscles. So these are going to be including the alfuzosin, that is urolxatrol, and also doxazine. And so these medications are going to work quickly in the men with a relatively small prostate. So in case of the small size of the prostate, so these alpha blockers, such as the doxazine, and that is a Raflo and a Rafaplo, and also Flomax. So these are going to be helpful to release the urine. So that means relax these urinary muscles. So it will help to like pass the urine easily. So these are the medical management who are having in case of the mild hypertrophy or mild hyperplasia of the prostate. So next one is the 5-alpha is a reducase inhibitors. So these medications that shrink the prostate by preventing the hormonal changes that cause the prostate growth. So is going to be inhibit the growth of the prostate. So these medications, which including is a finasteride, that is the Proscas, and also dutasteroids, that is the Avotrad. So these are going to be helpful to manage the hormonal balance. So that means we are having the hormonal imbalance. So these are going to be shrinking the prostate. So it's going to be, if the enlargement is there, is going to strengthen the prostate gland to reduce and also to manage the enlargement of the prostate gland. And also the combination drug therapy. These combination of the drug therapy. So the doctors might recommend the taking an alpha blockers and also 5-alpha radiculates. So these inhibitors are going the same time if either medications alone is not effective. So if it is not effective in the single medications, so these are going to be combined together with the 5-alpha blockers, and also next one is going to be the alpha blockers. So these are going to be useful to reduce the size as well as increasing the flow if any obstruction in the urine flow. And also other medications are the tadalafil. So these are going to be so these medications are helpful to, so especially these medicines are going to be treat the erectile dysfunctions who are having the sexual dysfunctions. So if they are not, if they participate in the sex, so because of the erectile dysfunctions, so normally these medications are going to be used in this treatment. So this is a normal terminology also called as the medications such as the Viagra, the sildenafil. So this also same category, same medications. So these medications also to treat the prostate enlargement. So they're also helpful in the enlargement prostate. However, this medication is not routinely used in the benign prostate hyperplasia. Is the generalized prescribed only into men who also experience the erectile dysfunctions. So in case of who are having the erectile dysfunction, that is sexual dysfunctions, as well as who are having the prostate enlargement, so these medications are going to be helpful to prevent the enlargement of the prostate as well as to improve the erectile dysfunction. So coming to the surgical management, so in case of if the medical management or if it's failed, if the medical management failed, so only thing is we have to refer to the surgical management. So that surgical management also depends upon the causative factors. So these are going to be the two types of the surgical managements. So these are going to be minimally invasive therapy and also invasive therapies. So these are the two categories in the surgical procedures. So first one is going to be is a minimally invasive therapies. So these minimally invasive therapy becomes the more common as the alternative to the is a watchful waiting and also invasive treatment. So they generally do not require the hospitalization and also are catheterization. These are the small surgical procedures. So instead of watching and wait and watchful, or in case of the invasive management, so we can go with the minimal invasive therapies. But the only advantage of these things, so the patient no need to stay in the no need hospitalization and also no need the catheterizations. So these are the simple medication, simple surgical procedures. So these surgical procedures are going to be different type of the non-invasive techniques. So it's a minimal invasive techniques. So these are going to be the transurethral microwave thermotherapy. So this is the one's treatment procedures. So we are going to use the microwave to that means heat productions. And also next one is the transurethral needle ablations, laser prostatectomy, and also photovaporizations, interstitial laser coagulations, intraprostatic urethral stents, so urethral stents. So these techniques are going to use the in case of the minimal invasive therapies. So in this condition, they no need to stay in the hospitals and no need to put the catheterization in the urethra. So these are the different type of treatments. So we are going to discuss here. First one is going to be the that's a transurethral microwave thermotherapy. So this is the special treatment procedures. So is this going to be, you are going to do in the hospitals in the outpatient based, and also this is going to deliver the microwave directly into the prostate through the transurethral probe. To raise the temperature of the prostate tissue is around the 45 degrees centigrades. So this causes the death of the tissues and thus relieving the obstruction. So if you see here, the small probe is going to be inserted into the urethra. So this tube is going to be inserted, this small probe. So which is the microwave thermotherapy. So it is going to increasing the temperature in the urethra. So this, because of the increasing the temperatures, so this temperature is going to damage the tissues. So which is because of the obstructions. So because of the this damage of the obstructing tissue is going to relieving that, gives the way to the urine passage, and also as well as is going to relieve the obstructions. So that is the main treatment procedures of the transurethral microwave thermotherapy. So this is the another non-invasive, minimal invasive technique. So here, a rectal temperature probe is also used during the procedure to ensure the temperature is kept below the 110 degrees. So which means the 43.5 degrees centigrades to prevent the rectal tissue damage. So in the rectum is going to be is a little bit of the temperature is going to be less, that is less than the 43.5 degrees centigrade. So this also we are going to do the transurethral, and also is through the rectum also have to give. So these both are going to be is a damage the surrounding tissues because of the heat applications. So this procedure takes the 90 minutes post-operative urinary retention is a common complications. So it takes the treatment plan will be is a more than like a 90 minutes, and also only one complications may chance to get the post-operatively may chance to get the urinary retention. So this is the common complications who undergone with this transurethral microwave diathermy. And also, thus the patient is generally sent home with indwelling catheters for the 2 to 7 days to maintain the urinary flow and facilitate the passing the small amount of the clots or necrotic tissue. So how to put the catheter to pass the urine, or maybe any passing materials, or maybe any necrotic material or in tissues coming from the urethra. So it will come through the urine and also is going to collect through this urinary catheter. So this is the procedures after this transurethral microwave thermotherapy. So next one is, so how to do the medical management with along with the antibiotics, painkillers, the pain medications. So antispasmodic medications are used to treat, tolerate and prevent the post-procedure problems. So especially, so after removing the necrotic tissue, so may chance to get is going to get the infections and also urinary retentions, and also the muscles are going to get the spasm. So in those conditions, if you give the medications related to the symptoms, such as the antibiotics or painkillers, or if in case of the spasm, so antispasmodic drugs, so these are going to be useful in case of the post-operative management. So the procedure is not appropriate for the men with the rectal problems. So only problem is should not do this transurethral, the microwave thermotherapy should not do who are having any rectal problems. So in case of it may chance to get the other complications. And also anticoagulant therapy should be stopped. So in case of anticoagulant who are undergone for the anticoagulant therapies, so we should not give this thermotherapy. So because of this thermotherapy is going to increasing the blood circulations and also become the blood is going to become more thinner, so it may give the severe complications. And also 10 days before the treatments, so should not give this in who are having the anticoagulant therapy. If they want to take the treatment, they have to stop the anticoagulant therapy at least minimum 10 days. So mild side effects including the occasional problems of the bladder spasm. So the bladder is going to get the muscle spasm, the tightness and shortening of the muscles. And also hematuria, will get the blood in the urine, dysuria, pain in the urine, and also retentions. So they may chance to get the unable pass the urine. So it may go to the urinary bladder. So these are the most common complications during the transurethral microwave thermotherapy. So another treatment plan is the transurethral needle ablations. So this transurethral needle ablation also is nothing but is going to insert through the urethra. Transurethral means so the needle is going to insert through the urethra. So it's going to take out the whatever the excessive growth in the prostate gland. So it's going to remove this needle. So this is another procedure that increasing the temperature of the prostate tissue that's causing the localized necrosis. So with this tissue is going to be increasing the temperature in the prostate glands. So this also going to be the low wave radio frequency used to treat this prostate. So with the heating. So this also heating modality. Only prostate tissue is in direct contact with the needles is affected, thus allowing the greater is a precision of the removal of the target tissue. So this also heating objectives is going to insert through the urethra. So what are the necrotic tissue is going to be is a resect or removed with this needle ablation. So with this technique, so it's called as transurethral needle ablations. So the extent of the tissue removed by this process is determined by the amount of the tissue contact. So that is the needle length, amount of energy delivered, and also duration of the treatment. So here we are sending the radio frequencies. So that means if it's in the low wave radio frequencies, so how much the contact is there with the prostate, so that much of is going to take out the necrotic tissues. So this procedure is performed is in the outpatient unit, or the physician using or office using or local anesthesia by the IV, the intravenous, or oral sedations. So this procedure at least takes the 30 minutes. The patients typically experience the little pain with an early return of the regular activities. So this also can do in the outpatient base, or maybe the patient, if they having this is going to take only 30 minutes of the treatment procedures. So they can give and also the urologists are going to give the anesthesia through the intravenously, or maybe the oral sedations also they're going to give this special treatment. So in this one, the complications are going to be the urinary retention and urinary tract infections, irritative voiding symptoms such as frequency, urgency, dysuria. So same there may chance to get the urgency and have to go immediately to the washrooms. So because of the dripping or painful urinations. Some patients require the urinary catheter for the short time, and patients often have the hematuria for a week. So whenever we remove the extra tissue, necrotic tissue from the urethra, so automatically they may chance to get the damage in the urethra. So may chance to get the urinary like a hematuria, the urine in the uh, blood in the urine. So that is the major complications in these surgeries. Next one is the laser prostatectomy. So laser prostatectomy means with the laser therapy, so how to remove the enlargement of the prostate glands. So these are going through the visual or ultrasound guidance. So effective alternative transurethral resection of the prostate in the treatment of the benign prostatic hyperplasia. So these are going to do the by visual with a video guided camera or flexible tube are going to be inserted in the laser, or maybe through the ultrasound we have to like a check, so where the enlargement and where is the size is increased. So with the lasers we are going to do the resections. So this surgical procedure is called as laser prostatectomy. So Romeo, prostatectomy, ectomy means removal of the prostate. So in this procedure the laser beam is delivered transurethral through the fiber instrument. And also used for the cutting, coagulation, and vaporization of the prostate tissue. So these lasers are going to be helpful to resect this prostate enlargement. So for the cutting purpose and coagulation and also vaporization. So there are variety of the laser procedures using different sources. So wavelength and delivery system. So different type of the lasers are going to use. So depends upon the wavelength and also depends upon the delivery of this laser system. So these are the special treatment techniques to remove the prostate gland. And also next one is the photo vaporizations. So this one is going to be uses the high power green lasers are going to use. So is going to be vaporize the prostate tissue. So depends upon the wavelength and also depends upon the amplitude of this wavelength. This lasers are going to be working the different mechanisms. So these green color, high power green color lasers are going to be vaporize the prostatic tissues. So the improvement in the urine flow and symptoms are almost immediate after the procedures. So if this treatment procedure, so is going to vaporize the obstructions, so it gives the space to the urine flow. So immediately after removing this extra tissues, that is the obstruction tissues, so automatically the flow is going to be increased. But here the complications of the bleeding is minimal, and the catheter is usually inserted for the 24 to 48 hours. So may chance to get is going to get the bleeding is the complications. And also another is the treatment procedure is the interstitial laser coagulations. So is also another is going to be this prostate is viewed through the cystoscope. So insert the cystoscope into the urethra, and also laser is used to quickly treat the precise the areas of the enlarge. So where the enlargement is there. So this the laser interstitial laser coagulations. So this prostate is placed by interstitial light guided directly into the prostate tissue. So if they give the laser directly into the tissues, so it is going to resect and also shrinken these prostate glands, this prostate. So it gives that means the clearance of the swelling, stop the swelling also. And also another treatment procedure is intraprostatic urethral stent. So how normally we are going to do the stents for the like a heart diseases who are having like a occlusion of the blood vessels or obstruction of the blood vessels. So he's going to give the space to the blood flow. Same thing here also. So this also we have to keep the stent inside the urethra. So how to send this through the urethral. So the stent is going to be applied, is going to be fixed in between the urethra. So if any obstruction here, easily is going to give the space to the passing of the urine. So this urine will come through the stents and also come out through the penis, through the outer penis. So the symptoms from the obstruction in the patients who are poor surgical candidates can be relieved with intraprostatic prostatic urethral stents. So these are going to be helpful to remove the obstructions. So the stents are placed directly into the prostatic tissue, and also the complication during the chronic pain, infections, and also is the encrussations. So these are going to be the more common symptoms, especially anything also. If any something extra tissue, if they place it in our body, automatically is going to give the complications. So they may chance to get the infections or may chance to get the is a hematuria. So these are the complications of the intraprostatic like a stents. So these are about the minimal invasive surgical procedures. So if you do the coming to the surgical procedures, so these surgical procedures are going to be okay. So coming to the invasive surgical procedures, so this invasive treatment is the symptomatic, that is the benign prostatic hyperplasia. So in these conditions, so if it is not treated or if not managed with minimum invasive surgical procedures and also medical management, so then go with the surgical management. So the choice of the treatment approach depends upon the size of the prostate enlargement, the prostate gland, and also location and prostatic enlargement and patient factors such as the age and surgical risk. So before going to the surgical procedures, so we have to thoroughly assess the completely about the past medical history and present medical history. What are the complications related to the surgical? Because of these surgical, this condition is may chance to get more commonly in the above the 70 to 80 years. So in those conditions, sometimes the patient may not indicated surgical procedures because of the other health complications. So depends upon the health status of the patient or any surgical risk of the patient, and also his age and also other factors have to think before the surgical procedures. So the surgical procedures are the first one is the transurethral resection of the prostate. So through the transurethral, and also this is going to be the is a rescoscope. So this is going to be the so use the some equipment. So these use the this resection of the prostate through the transurethral through the urethra. How to remove the prostate gland. This is the open surgical, like in the surgical procedure, invasive surgical procedures. So in is insert the this instrument is the rescoscope. So this is going to the scoscope is going to be inserted into the urethra. So from there, we are going to remove this prostate gland. So this is the surgical procedure, removing the prostate tissue using the rescoscope is inserted through the urethra. So these are going to be after inserting through the urethra, how to remove the prostate enlargement. So completely removing the prostate glands. So this is also one surgical procedure. So that is a invasive technique. And also next one is going to be give the transurethral incision of the prostate. So it's also is going to be the surgical procedures done under the local anesthesia for the men with moderate to severe symptoms. So here is going to be the prostate is enlargement, if the obstruction is there. So here is going to be several small incisions were made into the prostate glands and also expand the urethra. So small incisions they are going to be, so the surgeon is going to be inside, they do the incisions, many incisions, the small incision into the urethra is going to be expand the urethra. So if it is expand the urethra, so which relieves the pressure on the urethra and also improve the urine flow. So if we do the small incisions in the prostate, so it's going to be resect the whatever the enlargement, the extra necrotic tissue is going to be resect through this transurethral incision of the prostate. So after removing, so he's going to get the free space to the blood flow and also urine flow. So he's going to get the free flow from the bladder to the urethra. That is the main function, is going to be improve the urine, passing the form and the sending the urine from the bladder to the urethra to the outside through the penis. So that is the main function of these surgical procedures. So that is about the one is the transurethral resection of the prostate and also transurethral incision of the prostate. So these are the two methods. So that is about the invasive surgical management. So coming to so how we are going to prevent the BPH, that's a benign prostatic hyperplasia, also called as is a prostate enlargement. So only thing is, so here if we give some precautionary measures or some some advices, so we can prevent if they follow the healthy lifestyle. So and also if they use some medications, so we can prevent the prostate enlargement. So these are going to avoid or limit how you use the decongestant and also antihistamines. So some medication, especially the cold medications, decongestants, and also antihistamines for the cold and also allergy. So these going to be, if we use these medications less, so if we can prevent the benign like a prostate hyperplasia. So these are going to be the tighten the muscles that control the urine. So especially the bladder muscles, and also this going to be may tighten the muscles. So if we use these medications less, so we are going to prevent the tightness in these muscles. And also do exercise to strengthen the pelvic floor muscles. So everybody is not only for the females and males. So if we give the Kegels exercise, so this Kegels exercise, especially to improve the pelvic floor muscles, to strengthen the pelvic floor muscles. So these are going to be prevent the prostate enlargement. And also who are habituated to the coffee or caffeine, so alcohol, So these are going to be the more prone to get the irritation to the bladder. So if we avoid these products, also can prevention of the prostate enlargement. So lower the amount of the fluids, so especially drinks before going to the bed. So before going to the bed, so we can advise, because of this is most commonly seen in the elderly people. So in the elderly, we should avoid to drink more water before going to the bed. So this is also one of the precautionary measures. And when you first feel the urge, because it's easier on the bladders, and also the stay warm in the room. So before going to the bed, the room should be warm. If it is cold, it may chance to get the urgent to pee. So because of the it's a stimulation to the bladder muscles, also may chance to get the irritations, and also may chance to get the continuations. It will give the prostate enlargement. So if you take these precautionary measures, so we can avoid the prostate enlargement. So if we avoid the diabetes and also hypertension and cardiac diseases, along that means if we do regular exercise, we can prevent the all the health issues related to the benign prostate hyperplasia. So that is about today's topic. Hope you understand about the prostate enlargement. If you have any doubt, you can send me a message. I can clarify your doubts. So see you in the next class. Thank you very much.